Apparently there's a glitch in the Matrix because I'm having deja vu like a mother. So Dominion, a prequel to The Exorcist, tells the story of Father Merrin as he is commissioned to go out into the dead. Wait, we're not just talking about this like last week? So yeah, guys, if you did not already see my Exorcist The Beginning review, and you're possibly one of the people like I was before starting this review series that was living under a rock and did not hear the production story of the Exorcist prequels, this is actually the same movie as Exorcist The Beginning. Kind of. So whenever Morgan Creek commissioned the production of an Exorcist prequel, Paul Schrader came on after the death of John Frankenheimer, and he's the guy that wrote Taxi Driver, probably the most famous thing that he was known for. And they made an entire movie. They shot the entire movie, and after production was done and they got into the editing room, Morgan Creek started to have cold feet about what was actually produced by Paul Schrader. They thought that it wasn't horrific enough, it wasn't gory enough, and they just did not think the direction that they decided to go with this picture was going to be a success. So they brought in Renny Harlin, pretty popular director, Die Hard 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Deep Blue Sea, Long Kiss Goodnight. Once again, if you get anything out of this review, watch Long Kiss Goodnight. It's fucking awesome. Brought in Renny Harlin to do some reshoots. And what turned into initially 3 weeks of reshoots to retool the movie, add some gore, add some horror, and add a bit more ties directly to the original Exorcist movie, Renny Harlin convinced the company to commission an entire reshoot. So they reshot the entire movie, reworked the script, made an entirely different movie with the skeleton of the movie that was created by Paul Schrader, and then released that version to the theaters under the name Exorcist The Beginning. And released it to a flop, to a financial flop, to a critical flop. Fans didn't care for it either. So about 7 months later, the company Morgan Creek decided to let Paul Schrader finish his movie, and then they released that within the same year to not really any better reception. Maybe a little bit better critical reception, fan reception, and money-wise certainly didn't make any money either. So 2 complete failures made under the same production with the same skeleton script. And I've given my thoughts on Exorcist The Beginning. Not really a big fan of it. Got some moments. Not my thing. Now we are at Dominion. Now walking into this, I wasn't sure what to expect because my main thing about Exorcist The Beginning that I was looking forward to is, as the guy that typically does not like prequels because I don't like having questions answered and I don't like having the mystery taken away, The Exorcist is a movie that I actually do think could use a prequel storyline, not only to flesh out Father Merrin, but to flesh out the demon Pazuzu and give some context to the opening of The Exorcist that kind of forebodes that maybe these 2 characters have met and faced off before. So it's a prequel that I'm like, hey, I'm there. For the first time, I'm there. So with that same hope intact that maybe one of these versions of this movie will deliver upon that promise and will give me an answer to those questions that I'll actually enjoy, I walked into Dominion skeptical yet optimistic. And unfortunately, I don't think I like it any better than Exorcist The Beginning. It's a very weird experience watching 2 completely different versions of the same movie within a couple of days of each other. This is not like the Snyder Cut thing where you watch the Snyder Cut and, you know, the skeleton of that movie that you saw before is still there. The same exact plot, the same exact A, B, and C, but it's just so much better and so much more fleshed out. No, this is an entirely different movie. Less than 10% of this movie was in Exorcist The Beginning. So to start right off with the positives, with what Dominion does right, and it is going to be difficult to review this movie on its own merits without comparing it to Exorcist The Beginning. It's hard for my brain to work that way. So you're gonna see a lot of comparisons and what was better, what was worse. I think that the acting and the characters themselves in this movie is much better. And Father Merrin especially feels much more like a real person. He feels much more like a real human being. You know, there was a little bit of a thing that I had with Exorcist The Beginning where Stellan Skarsgård, who plays Father Merrin in both movies, he's the only cast member that came over. that he seemed like he was trying to put too much gravitas into it and put too much gravel into his vocal delivery and try to be a little bit more stoic throughout scenes that just kind of seemed forced. Here, he genuinely feels like a real person. He feels like somebody that's torn, that has a crisis of faith, that has an event in his past that is kind of following him in a cloud over him. Like, that all comes through with his performance. So I think that he is really good here. I think that all the surrounding cast, especially the other priest here that I believe was Father Richard or some shit. Hang on. Okay, it was Father Francis. I was way off. But Father Francis, very good character. He's kind of the one that is very much deep into his Christianity, and he's trying to attack all of the problems that they're having in this movie from a person of faith, and he's just a full-on believer, and he has a lot of emotions going on because of that. So all of the acting, all the characters, I think Dominion certainly has the leg up on. And I also think that the story here in this movie is much more cohesive. It's much more thematically rich. It feels like the original script. It doesn't feel like something they were kind of piecemealing, which Exorcist: The Beginning certainly had flavors of. This has, you know, the whole storyline brought up, which was in Exorcist: The Beginning, where Father Merrin was forced by Nazis to kind of be complicit in the murder of 10 people in this village. Otherwise, he was going to kill everybody, and that made him have a crisis of faith. And that actually carries through on the plot and is relevant beyond just that one scene, just for shock value. And you know, it carries back into his character, and you believe more in his journey of regaining his faith by the end of this movie to vanquish the evil. And so I just think as a through line, that whole character arc of Father Merrin is much stronger in this. I also like the way that they explored Christianity in the locals of the people. You know, they're doing this archaeological dig to unearth this church, just like in Exorcist: The Beginning, but all the locals are getting involved, and they're trying to spread Christianity to them. There's a classroom, and then at some point there's a death that makes the villagers think that maybe Christianity has brought it upon them. So there's this fear of Christianity. There's like a curiosity and a need for it, and there's this fear of it. And I like the way that they explore that in the movie, because it's not often you see a movie that is very much, you know, brought to you through Catholicism and Christianity, to where they're showing why people wouldn't want to be a part of Christianity. It's not something I've seen very often. And tonally, I also think this movie was a lot more solid. Like, you pretty much, within the first 15 minutes, you get an idea of what kind of movie this is, and it never really abandons that. It never tries to go into other genres. It never tries to pull the rug out from under you and shock you. It sets up a tone, it sets up a pace, and it carries that through all the way to the end, which again, you could probably just attribute to this being the original script, not something that they had to skeleton together and Frankenstein together after the fact. Now moving on to the negatives. This movie was boring. Like, I wouldn't say that Exorcist: The Beginning was the most exciting movie in the world, but at least, you know, those scenes of horror, those scenes of shock value in the third act especially, add some excitement to the movie. This very much feels like a made-for-TV drama about Christianity. And though it might be technically a better movie on paper, it might check a few more of the boxes as far as a quality production, I don't think that it's as satisfying as a prequel to The Exorcist. Not that either one of them is very satisfying, but if you didn't tell me that this was a prequel to The Exorcist and you just changed the name of Father Merrin to somebody else, this would have no ties whatsoever to this franchise. I mean, you never see Pazuzu, you never hear that name, there's no sound design or visuals that make it look like The Exorcist, like we got in the third act of Exorcist: The Beginning, and it just tonally doesn't fit in with this franchise. This is not a horror movie at all, in my opinion. I mean, there's some dark events going on, there's some interesting things that's explored. I mean, we still get the stillborn baby that's covered with maggots, and there's some visuals here that are not exactly appealing, but it's not a horror film. It's not scary. It's not intense. It's not tension-filled at all. It's literally like just a drama about Christianity, about a crisis of faith and the presence of evil. And all the way through, they're building up this presence of evil. They're building up this possibility of possession with this character, Cheche. And when you get to the third act, when they finally visualize all of that and they give you your villain and you have your showdown between Father Merrin and the demon and everything, it's not an exciting third act. I mean, there's just a dude floating with a bald head and a diaper. Not scary. And even there's a scene where he's walking around and he turns into a demon for a split second that is just one of the worst visual effects that I've ever seen in a horror film. This doesn't have quite as many bad effects as the beginning, but the ones that are here almost stand out more because there's fewer. So I don't know what they were trying to do. It's just all the way through, I was kind of flatlined emotionally. Not because I already knew what was going to happen, because I just saw this fucking movie 2 days ago, but it never got exciting. It never got scary. It never got intense. It was just kind of one speed all the way through to the end. And if I watched this first, it would not necessarily make me want to watch The Exorcist. That's what a prequel should do, make you want to continue the story. This didn't do that. So overall, guys, probably a shorter review because I give a lot of the same criticisms to the previous movie. It's the same shit. I probably almost could have mashed them into one review if I wanted to, but Dominion, I probably would prefer Exorcist the beginning just by a nose, just by a razor-thin margin, just because the horror is there and there's a little bit more excitement. And if I had to watch one of them, that one's got a little bit more meat on its bones, just a little bit, but it's gonna depend on taste. I mean, these are just very different messes for very different reasons. I mean, we'll put it this way, it's like a food analogy, okay? Exorcist the beginning is like a microwaved gas station burrito. You're just trying to eat fast, eat quick, and eat cheap, and it's enjoyable for what it is, but then it gives you the shits immediately afterwards. Dominion is trying to be a steak, but they're giving you meat that is not fresh, and the guy cooked it way too much. And so pick your poison. Which one do you want? It depends on you. So if you were not a fan of Exorcist the beginning and its cheap horror direction for a prequel to The Exorcist, maybe give Dominion a shot and see if this more grounded, dramatic take will appeal to you more, but I really don't think either one of these prequels do what they're setting out to do, and I don't think either one of them are really worth watching. So once again, gonna have to tell you to just go ahead and skip it. So what do you guys think of Dominion, a prequel to The Exorcist? Do you prefer this, or do you prefer Exorcist the beginning? Or do you think they both suck equally? Let me know down below. Or do you love one of them? I haven't heard anybody say that yet, but, you know, we'll see. Do you love Dominion? Do you love Exorcist the beginning? Let me know down below, guys, and keep an eye out because here in a couple of days we'll be having our Exorcist ranking. And then later on this month on Halloween, we're going to do the 31 on 31 ranking, which most of you guys are familiar with, but we take a bunch of horror franchises, put them together, and rank all 31 of the movies on Halloween day. So definitely subscribe so you can check out both of those rankings, as well as my next review series, which is going to be The Omen. So we're going to knock out The Omen and The Exorcist before 31 on 31. Buckle up because it's going to be fun. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and share this video, help it get shared around, get some more views, and help this channel out. If you want to help out in a more direct way, my Patreon page link is down below. That's the best way to give back to this channel. And you get exclusive perks as well, like exclusive content. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.